The day I almost lost my family's land was the day I discovered I owned the entire valley. Linda Whitmore called the cops on my illegal cabin at 7 a.m. Police sirens cut through the morning mist, smoke from my chimney mixing with diesel exhaust. She had no idea that I didn't just own the land, I owned her mortgage, her husband's business lease, and the road she drove in on. 3 months of escalating harassment. Noise complaints when I was dead asleep. Structure violations on a cabin that existed before she was born. Threatening letters demanding $500 a day in fines. But Linda had no clue what she'd started. By the time I was done, she'd be facing courthouse steps, news cameras, and a truth that would wipe that smug smile right off her face. My grandfather bought 2,400 acres in Montana's Clearwater Valley back in 1963 for $800. That's what a decent dinner costs now. He got timber rights, mineral rights, water rights, the whole enchilada. Smart old guy knew exactly what he was doing. I inherited this land when I was 28, right after my parents died in a car accident. Spent every summer here as a kid, learning carpentry from Grandpa, building this A-frame cabin with my own hands. 1,200 square feet of pure independence. Solar panels, well water, composting toilet, completely off-grid and legal in every single way. After burning out in corporate software consulting, I chose the simple life. Work remote, breathe clean air, no traffic jams or office politics. Just me, the mountains, and the sound of wind through pine trees. But gentrification was creeping up the valley like a slow avalanche. California money buying up plots, building McMansions that looked like they belonged in Beverly Hills, not Big Sky country. The newest eyesore was Clearwater Estates, 32 luxury homes ranging from $800,000 to $2 million, managed by Whitmore Properties. Enter Linda Whitmore. Picture this, 52 years old, bleach blonde hair sprayed into a helmet, driving a white Escalade that probably cost more than most people's houses. She was HOA president and the real estate developer, which should have been the first red flag. Her motivation was crystal clear. She wanted my land for Phase 2 expansion. With my property, she could triple the value of her existing lots. Her first move was subtle. A certified letter claiming my cabin violated neighborhood standards and demanding $500 per day in fines. When she showed up at my door for the first inspection, I'll never forget the sound of her stiletto heels clicking on my wooden porch boards like a woodpecker with anger issues. "This structure is completely inappropriate for our community standards," she announced, waving one manicured finger at my cabin. "Ma'am," I said, keeping my voice level, "this cabin was built in 1995. Your community didn't exist until 2018. Her research must have confirmed what I already knew. My land wasn't technically part of her HOA. Grandpa's deed predated her development by 40 years. So Linda pivoted strategies. If she couldn't use HOA rules, she'd find any violation to force a sale. Building codes, health department, fire marshal. She was going to throw everything at me until something stuck. "You can't fight progress," she said with that fake smile real estate agents perfect in the mirror. "This valley is going to be developed whether you like it or not." What Linda didn't know was that she'd just declared war on the wrong family. Grandpa hadn't just bought land, he'd bought power. And I was about to learn exactly how much power that was. Linda's first real shot came 2 weeks later, an anonymous tip to the county inspector about an unpermitted structure. Inspector Jake Morrison showed up apologetic but professional. We walked through every inch of my cabin. His eyebrows kept climbing higher as we went. "Son, this place is built better than most houses in town." "Who did the work?" "My grandfather and I. Took us 3 summers." Jake pulled out the original building permits from 1995, signed and stamped. Everything legal, everything documented, everything done right. But Linda wasn't done. Next came the state environmental agency complaint about illegal sewage disposal. I brought in a professional septic inspector at 6 a.m. sharp. The analysis proved my system was cleaner than most municipal plants. But here's where it got interesting. The inspector mentioned something that made my morning coffee taste a whole lot better. Funny thing is, we got another call this week about gray water discharge into Clearwater Creek. Traced it back to that new development up the road, Whitmore Properties. While Linda was attacking my perfectly legal septic system, her own development was dumping contaminated water into the creek. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a chainsaw. Her harassment campaign had just exposed her own environmental violations. Linda escalated to the fire marshal, claiming my wood stove was a threat to public safety. Fire Marshal Betty Chin arrived with a full inspection team. What I had was showcase quality work, copper pipes gleaming, proper clearances exceeding code by 6 inches. Mind if we use these photos for training materials? Betty asked. This is textbook installation. While Linda was wasting state resources on bogus complaints, I started digging into her business practices. What I found made my morning coffee taste like victory. Linda was claiming development consultation fees from buyers while never mentioning her dual role as HOA president. Classic conflict of interest, potentially fraudulent. That's when the community started rallying around me. Old Pete, a retired logger who lived downstream, confirmed Linda had been pressuring him to sell. Offered me half what my land's worth, then threatened eminent domain when I said no. Maria Santos, who owned the local diner, shared her own horror stories. She's been spreading rumors about health code violations. 30 years in business, never had a single complaint until she showed up. But the game-changing discovery came while researching county records for my defense. Sometimes the universe has a sense of humor. I was looking for ammunition to defend myself and instead found a nuclear weapon. Buried in the maze of county filing systems, I stumbled across something massive. My grandfather hadn't just owned his 2,400 acres. The old records revealed he owned the mineral rights under most of the valley, including Linda's entire development. But that wasn't the shocking part. Grandpa held first mortgage position on 3 key properties that Linda had been using as leverage for her construction loan. Properties she claimed to own free and clear when applying for financing. I spent 14 hours in the county records office, my eyes burning from reading microfilm and faded documents. But what I discovered was worth every minute. Grandpa's 1963 purchase included language that gave me veto power over any development affecting the watershed. The leverage was incredible. Linda's entire development was built on land where I controlled mineral and water rights. Her construction loan was in default. She'd missed 2 payments during her harassment campaign. The bank was getting nervous about her ability to complete Phase 2, which required my land to be financially viable. That's when I found the handwritten note tucked inside the original deed. Grandpa's careful script on yellowed paper: for my grandson, never let them turn this valley into another strip mall. I sat in my truck outside the courthouse holding that note and finally understood. This wasn't just inheritance, it was a responsibility. Grandpa had known that someday someone like Linda would come along, and he'd prepared for this fight 60 years before it started. Linda's desperation reached new heights as her financial world started crumbling. My solar panels were mysteriously damaged overnight. Security cameras caught a white Escalade creeping around at 2 a.m. Someone tampered with my water well cover, potentially contaminating my drinking supply. Every incident was documented with photos, video, timestamps, and detailed notes. The security system I'd upgraded captured everything in high-definition clarity. The bribery attempt came on a Tuesday morning. Linda approached me directly, her usual arrogance replaced by barely concealed panic. "Let's be reasonable here," she said. "I'm prepared to make you a very generous offer. $400,000 cash for your cabin and 50 acres. When I politely declined, she increased to $600,000. Then $800,000. Her final offer made my coffee nearly shoot out my nose. $1,200,000 plus assumption of all legal fees. "I appreciate the offers, Linda," I said, audio recorder capturing every word. "But this land isn't for sale at any price." My counteroffer was calculated to drive her over the edge. "Tell you what though, you can purchase my approval for Phase 2 development for $5 million. Cash only." Her face cycled through confusion, rage, and terror in about 3 seconds. "What the hell are you talking about? You can't block development." Linda's final desperate gambit was a masterpiece of fraud and stupidity. Forged documents claiming my grandfather had sold development rights in 1987. A fake environmental impact study. And an attempted restraining order claiming I'd threatened her with violence during a confrontation that never happened. The forgery unraveled faster than a cheap sweater. The notary stamp was dated from a notary who died in 1985, 2 years before the document was allegedly signed. Professional paper dating tests confirmed the documents had been created recently using artificially aged paper. The restraining order hearing was where Linda's desperation reached its peak. She brought a witness who claimed to have seen me threaten her. A man who'd never met me and couldn't pick me out of a two-person lineup. I simply presented security footage showing no contact between Linda and me for 6 consecutive weeks. The judge dismissed the case and ordered Linda to pay my legal fees. Miss Whitmore, Judge Wells said, "This is your final warning about frivolous litigation. Next time there will be sanctions." The Clearwater Community Center had never seen anything like it. 150 residents packed into a space designed for 100. The evening news crew set up in the back corner, cameras rolling. Sheriff's deputies flanked the exits, expecting trouble. Linda called the meeting to order, her voice pitched higher than usual, hands trembling. "Tonight we'll be voting on the Phase 2 expansion that will bring prosperity to Clearwater Estates." Her PowerPoint was all corporate polish and empty promises. And at the center of it all, my grandfather's land marked as future development parcel. "This illegal cabin," Linda said, pointing at a photo of my home, "represents everything holding our community back. The HOA board recommends immediate eminent domain proceedings." That's when I stood up. "Point of order. I'd like to address the assembly." Linda's face flushed red. "You have no standing here." "Actually," I said, pulling out my microphone, "I do have standing. Would you like to see my mineral rights documentation?" The room erupted. Deputy Johnson enforced meeting procedures. "Let him speak, ma'am." I connected my laptop to the projection system and displayed Grandpa's original 1963 deed on the wall. "Ladies and gentlemen, Linda's been trying to steal land she never had any right to touch." The revelation hit like a physical force. I explained mineral rights, water rights, development restrictions, the comprehensive legal framework that gave me veto power over any development affecting the watershed. Linda's desperation exploded. "Those documents are fake. He's been threatening me for months." "Really?" I clicked to the next slide. "Let's talk about threats." The evidence avalanche began. My attorney presented court-certified deed documentation. The forensic accountant revealed Linda's embezzlement of HOA funds, her double-mortgaged properties, her unpaid taxes. The environmental lawyer showed photos of Linda's illegal creek contamination. Old Pete stood up. "Linda tried to cheat me out of my grandfather's land too. Threatened eminent domain when I refused." Maria was next. "She's been using HOA money to pay her personal lawyers." Then came the mic drop moment. A man in a dark suit stood up from the back. "Miss Whitmore, I'm Robert Chin from First National Bank. Your construction loan is in default and we're calling it due immediately. This gentleman owns the mineral rights under your entire development. Your Phase 2 expansion is financially impossible." Linda's meltdown was spectacular. She screamed about conspiracies, threatened to sue everyone in the room, and in her rage accidentally admitted to forging the documents. "Those papers were perfect. You can't prove they're fake." Deputy Johnson stepped forward. "Ma'am, did you just admit to document fraud on camera?" The community vote was swift. Phase 2 expansion rejected 87%. Vote of no confidence in Linda as president, unanimous. As Linda was escorted out, still screaming threats, I addressed the stunned audience. "Linda, you just threatened me in front of 150 witnesses and 3 cameras. I think you're done." 1 week later, Linda Whitmore was arrested for document fraud and embezzlement. The sight of her in handcuffs on the evening news felt like the final chapter. Her properties entered foreclosure. Her real estate license was permanently revoked. She was facing 5 to 10 years in federal prison. But the real transformation was what we built from the ashes. I launched a conservation easement program protecting 1,800 acres of the most sensitive watershed areas. 3 neighboring families joined immediately, creating a buffer zone that would prevent future Linda Whitmores from destroying what took nature centuries to build. We established the Clearwater Valley Scholarship Fund using Linda's forfeited deposits, sending 3 local kids to college every year. The Conservation Trust protects the watershed for future generations while allowing sustainable forestry and responsible development. Old Pete's property values rose 40% due to conservation protections. Maria's Diner became the unofficial community center, thriving as the heart of our restored valley. 3 other communities contacted me about similar developer schemes, leading to a statewide network of rural landowner advocates. The state legislature even introduced the Linda Law, preventing HOA conflict of interest abuse. Real systemic change born from our local fight. Standing on my cabin porch at sunset, Watching the valley vista unmarred by McMansions, I finally understood what Grandpa meant about stewardship. This wasn't just about property ownership, it was about protecting something irreplaceable for people not yet born. Always research who's really behind development pressure. Financial desperation drives most harassment. And remember, mineral rights are often more valuable than surface rights. Check your family's old deeds carefully. Drop a comment with your worst property dispute story. Hit that subscribe button for more stories about standing up to corrupt authority. Because together we're stronger than any corporate bully. Grandpa, I kept my promise. The valley's safe.